Welcome all. My name is Tapio Peltonen. I'm the founder of EEX, Entrepreneurship Exchange, and I'm happy to open this event, which we are arranging with Henry, the Association of HR Management in Finland. Good to see all of you active, up and active this early in the morning. Very briefly, the program, simple and straightforward. We have a very interesting keynote waiting us in a few minutes. Then we will allow you to network and discuss some of the learnings today in a small group. So we'll put you in small groups. And we will round this off with the Fireside chat together with our two esteemed HR directors. And there will be possibilities to ask questions in between. I would ask you to maybe to shoot some of the questions into the chat. We will look into them and fit them in where they are best served and best answered. And I'm sure there will be lots of questions. A few words about us, because some of you may not know what EEX is. We are a startup. We work with the startups. Our only mission is to make world more entrepreneurial. We make mainly the large companies entrepreneurial, and the Entrepreneurship Exchange is about large company people stepping out of their big company and helping a startup, a real case. And the real case is important here because by Steve Plank's definition, a startup is not a real company. It's a temporary organization in search of a scalable business model. So startup either learns a business or dies. And that's why startup is a wonderful place to learn about learning new business. Here's what we do, and very briefly, what we practically do. We put large company key talents, senior leaders, to help startup entrepreneurs for 1 year. We form advisory boards of different large company key talents, mix them up, and this advisory board focuses on helping practically one startup team for 1 year, meeting roughly once a month. So there are two missions here: helping the startup, the real case that either lives or dies, and learn entrepreneurship, learn from the entrepreneurs and learn from your peers, the other people from the other large companies, how to look the future, how to lead more effectively, make decisions, take risk, how to think about these things. So this is what we do. We try to make world more entrepreneurial. We have already over 200 Finnish leaders who have done this journey. And I, of course, want to welcome everybody. I personally think everybody who has not been an entrepreneur should really experience entrepreneurship by helping entrepreneurs, working with startups, doing something. So welcome. Let's move on. Our first guest here today is awfully interesting. He's actually originally trained as an economist, and then he went to Army and served as a commissioned officer in Royal Engineers. And then after that, he studied human resources stuff and started a long career with learning and development, and different kind of development positions, some of which he will share with you in a moment. So please welcome Chris Roebuck from UK.
Good morning. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for the great introduction. And I just confirm what Tapio said about the value of talent from corporates going into the entrepreneurial world, and you'll understand why as I go into what I'm going to say. So the content this morning is really just a journey that I've been on, that illuminated from my perspective, one, how HR can better serve the organizations that they support, and also actually how organizations can be significantly better. But interestingly, the main example of that was the reverse. In terms of how to make an organization more entrepreneurial, we suddenly realized that HR had to do the same. So I will dive into my journey. So as well as being an economist army, I've worked with SMEs for about 5 years before I went into the corporate world. And I've also done public sector. So this is bringing a number of perspectives together around what I've seen in the organizational and HR worlds over quite a wide breadth of organizations. So let's get going. My title is Entrepreneurial HR, and above all, I think in terms of HR, it's about the relevance of HR to the business, the resonance of what it's saying, the ability to produce results, but above all, the ability to produce a return on investment for HR in terms of what the organization thinks it's all about. So what am I going to do? I'm going to cover a certain number of areas relatively quickly, obviously, because of the time we have. Excuse me. First of all, I'm going to look at UBS, where this really came together. And that was the creation of a new global bank. And particularly interesting was that it was about one bank, the creation of a single service output to customers in all business divisions. The development of entrepreneurial leadership, fundamentally to achieve more with less and faster. And above all, the question we had at UBS was, how do we reinvigorate an organization of 80,000 people, where some people have never even heard the word entrepreneurial? And how do we look for opportunities in a marketplace to break the mold of that marketplace? Well, it's now a Harvard case study. We introduced entrepreneurial leadership. There were significant financial benefits, and the bank won numerous awards. So that was the driver. It was a strategic business driver. How can we make this organization more entrepreneurial? That led to the first steps in entrepreneurial HR. Excuse me, because it became clear that entrepreneurial HR was required just as much as entrepreneurial leadership. And to understand how HR worked, I went off to Michigan and spent 2 weeks with Dave Ulrich, with my team, doing the official HR business partner course and going into detail about how his perspectives could illuminate what we did. And Dave and I did a report for UBS at the end of that, which was really interesting. So we tried to implement entrepreneurial HR at UBS, but then after that, in all the organizations I work with, I looked at the same problem. How is HR doing in this organization? So it was a deeper development of how we could then take the business partner model and take it up a gear. And it was that deeper development phase in the public sector in the UK and others that revealed some interesting secrets. And the other thing I want to cover is we've all been through COVID, but there are some interesting things that I've looked at that have been insights from COVID, which seem to confirm key organizational success factors, which if HR take up, give HR a very powerful message for their organizations. What happened in UBS was quite interesting. We had to create an entrepreneurial mindset amongst both senior leaders and in particular customer-focused elements of the organization. So the question was, how do we do that? What is this process by which we take them up a gear, up a gear, up a gear, up a gear? And this is what we utilized with the operational leadership across the organization. You have to be a great functional leader. You also have to know about people. You have to be able to plan things and make sure they come in on time. And you have to have financial knowledge to make sure they come in on budget. Then you also need to understand what's happening operationally in the picture around you in detail, not just on the surface. But you obviously also need to understand what the organization is doing and why. What's the purpose, what's the vision, and where are we going? And that was clearly a shortfall in many areas of the bank. Then it's about, okay, what is the operating environment within which we are having to work? Competition, regulation, future of the market, etc. Because it's only if you understand all of those elements can you see the opportunities, because you see the big picture. Then you can create your entrepreneurial mindset. And that is fundamentally the process that we utilize with senior leaders at UBS to get them to be more entrepreneurial. What do I mean by entrepreneurial? Well, what we wanted them to do was to try and utilize some of the thought processes that entrepreneurs and SMEs all know well. And these were some of the principles we put in place. These are the day-to-day actions we want you to do. It's all about personal responsibility. It's not about somebody saying, it's not my job. It's not in my job description. It's about everybody making sure the organization is successful. It's also about belief in the purpose now and in the future. It's not just about me doing my job. I'm creating something new. And we managed to get that to come to the fore. It's also about total focus on the customer, no matter where you are in the organization. The other areas we focused in on, you need to understand the whole organization and your part in that machine to be able to make the whole machine work effectively. Also, you need to optimize risk. You need to understand that you have no business if you have no risk. And this is an example of Australian risk management. Quite how it ended up, I'm not sure. It's also about innovation and improvement all the time. And these are the tree climbing goats of Oman and Morocco who have managed to innovate and improve, knowing that the best greenery is at the top of the tree. So I worked on the basis that if goats can innovate, probably senior executives in a global bank should be able to manage to do a little bit of it. And small organizations, it's about simplicity and efficiency. You know, you do not have a buffer in the bank like large corporates for incompetence. I could mention Kodak. But above all, we got them to say, we want you to build the brand and the future. We want all of you, every single employee, to be a proactive brand ambassador. And that was the fundamental message of the chief executive. He said to the top 500 leaders, I want you to make sure that every single one of your employees is a proactive brand ambassador, because I know that if you do that, the profits will come in, the market share will come in. So that was the approach that we took at UBS. Now, the problem was that for entrepreneurial leadership to be effective at the front end of the organization, effective HR had to be entrepreneurial at the back end of the organization, as indeed did IT, finance, and the other support functions. So we then had to take that up because people made the comment at the front end, look, we're moving fast, but HR isn't moving fast. So we tried to apply entrepreneurial leadership development principles into the HR function. What happened? HR did improve, but the multiple roles that HR play within the organization actually somewhat complicated its effectiveness. So we needed to go deeper, and this is where we sort of started looking at the business partner model and Ulrich and all the rest of it. Now, this is obviously the Ulrich partner model, where we have different roles for HR. We obviously have the administrative side of it, bottom left. We have the employee champion, bottom right, change agent, top right, strategic partner, top left. And we broke these down to say, okay, if we look at these, what are these all about? So the employee champion elements, the strategic partner and the change agent are all about some element of understanding the holistic organization. To do those things, you have to understand the whole organization quite well. But also with the strategic partner and the change agent, there is an element of future thinking, the strategy feeding into the future, the change feeding into the future. And we worked on the basis we needed to do something around making those elements more effective. So we looked at saying, okay, if we were to say, where are the shortfalls in HR? We thought, okay, Where do we have the lowest shortfall in understanding? Where do we have the greatest shortfall to build that holistic understanding of the organization as it is? Most people in HR had some knowledge of general task skills, time management, prioritization, task planning, self-management, but it wasn't as good as it could be. Most of them had operational activity understanding in terms of the specific parts of the organization they supported. But the understanding of the strategic objectives, the bigger picture and how it all fitted in, and aligning operational activity to that was less good. And the holistic operation of the organization in terms of the more subtlety around network social structure was less effective in HR. And finally, HR didn't really understand that much, any detail around market, competitors, end customers, regulators, and the future. Obviously, the HR director did, but as you cascaded down the system, the knowledge got very fuzzy very quickly. So what we did was we said, how do we change from being a business partner to an HR entrepreneur to beat these shortfalls? And so we said we have to spend time beating these shortfalls to get people up to speed in these specific areas. So this is an example that I put together. So we'd say, okay, in terms of HR operational knowledge, we're pretty much there, but we need to spend a little bit of time making sure people are up to speed on what's happening at the strategic level in HR. But we need to spend more time making sure people are up to speed in terms of what the organization is doing. And finally, we actually need to spend quite a lot of time getting people in HR to truly understand what's happening out there with the end customers. And that was what we went through in terms of upping people's skills, briefing people, etc. So really, the concept of the HR entrepreneur is to cover those shortfalls that exist within the HR business partner by proportionately matching time, focus, and development around those shortfalls to get people up to full level. So we worked in 3 stages, and it was about what I call HR entrepreneur level 1, firm foundation and skills understanding. So to be an HR entrepreneur, you've got to have the basics in place. HR functional capability, task implementation capability, and it's worth noting here, various pieces of research I have done over the years, plus confirmation here, suggests that only 25% of leaders have ever been taught how to delegate effectively. Just think of the implication of that in terms of day-to-day effectiveness. Holistic understanding of the current organization was the other element. And the question I asked in UBS and in other organizations was simply, could the HR team do an effective SWOT analysis of the organization? So that was the firm foundation upon which we built. Then the next stage was enhancing current performance. So we were reviewing what HR did and how to increase simplicity, efficiency, and impact, to prioritize work of strategic benefit with senior leaders, and then align operational work. It was so interesting how many times HR spotted that an operational unit was focusing on things that actually were not aligning to the strategic objectives. And any work that doesn't align to those needs to be stopped. In some places, we found that 25% of the stuff being done in consultation with line management wasn't actually aligned to strategic objectives. It was just stuff that people had been doing. The other thing that became clear was that there was confusion about who did what with regard to people in terms of development, difficult conversations. So we had to make sure that everybody was clear about what line managers did, what HR did, and what senior leaders did around people. And it was about helping HR to deeply understand how success happens with people. Example, that employee performance is 60% rational and 40% emotional, which has a clear impact on how you approach business and what they need to be able to do. Then stage 3 was finding future opportunities, having got the present as good as possible. And that was the focus on the change agent and strategic partner. And it was really that firm foundation and the understanding of the current enabled you to identify additional opportunities for HR to proactively support wider delivery in the future. E.g., being a catalyst and guide to get the best from the organization, enhancing performance across it. For example, what we call the best boss, and a catalyst and guide for entrepreneurial leadership, creating future opportunities. Now in UBS, the entrepreneurial leadership led to entrepreneurial HR. But having made that discovery in future organizations I work with, the entrepreneurial leadership across the organization wasn't there. So then, with the knowledge of the HR entrepreneur, by making HR more entrepreneurial, we could then give the rest of the operation a resonant and powerful, compelling vision of what could happen through entrepreneurial leadership. In terms of keeping it simple, just this best boss thing, this is just a couple of things that we did in terms of interaction, and I've done in many organizations, about saying, let's not get hung up on complexity. What do you as leaders need to do to make people give their best and focus it onto success? And we get them to provide a list of simple things like, oh yeah, my boss kept me informed about what was going on. Let me get on with things and didn't interfere. Praised me, acted with integrity, led by example, listened to what I said, asked for my ideas, cared about me, and didn't blame me for genuine mistakes. Really, really getting both HR leadership and line manager leadership to focus in on the most simple, practical ways to get effective performance, which is exactly what the small organization, the entrepreneur, has to do to be effective as well. So the HR entrepreneur was a reflection of what we did with the key leaders in the other parts of the organization at UBS. Great HR knowledge, good task implementation knowledge, deep operational understanding, strategic understanding, market and environment knowledge, which then allowed you to see the big picture and have this entrepreneurial mindset, seeking out opportunities for HR to be better and the organization to be better. And we utilize things such as lunch and learn sessions, team briefings, shadowing, job swaps, customer visits, investor relations, particularly at UBS, and online learning to achieve this. I look at it this way, that HR has two key audiences at the strategic level. It has the chief executive, who wants no drama, a nice growing business, good profits market, happy customers, increasing share values, and a nice personal image in terms of all his other CEO peers. Then we also have the CFO, who is quite keen to get more money in than out. He wants to minimize risk, maximum return of investment for lowest cost, predictability of where it's all going, and nice data with good rational thinking, and none of this emotional stuff, which is an education process for CFOs when they realize that most of the responses in organizations are actually emotional, not rational, but that's another talk. So in my view, if you look at the data, HR has an open door. We just need to walk in and say the right thing. CEO survey here. They say key drivers of sustained success, 63% human capital, 63% customer relationships. An interesting 50-50 balance. 82% see collaboration and flexibility as most important characteristics for employees, and 69% think inspirational leadership is key to success. So we're saying the right thing. What do we need to say if we can take all of this simplicity, all of this entrepreneurial HR? Well, I developed a script that I know has worked. I can show you a way to get up to 20% more done in the same time for the same money, get up to 30% more effort from 60% of people, double the effectiveness of implementation, improve customer service and brand value, get up to 10% more on bottom line as a result, create a future-focused entrepreneurial and innovative organization, all for no financial investment virtually, and using intellectual capital we already have in the organization. Does that sound like something you're interested in? And nobody to date has ever said no. So I believe entrepreneurial HR, acting as a proactive catalyst for success, is what we're all about. It's not just about delivering HR. On the COVID thing, what have the organizations that have survived COVID most successfully done it through? One, everybody aligned on success and survival. Everybody keeping it simple. Cascaded decision-making to the lowest practical level. Inspiring eye care leadership for engaged employees. Adaptable and agile operation. Entrepreneurial thinking about constant innovation, improvement and transformation, finding those opportunities if your business is under pressure in one area, and above all, total customer focus by everyone. And those are things I think linked to entrepreneurial HR can use as evidence for what needs to happen in the future in organizations. So my perspective is quite simply this: just make HR an entrepreneurial catalyst for success. And imagine how inspiring a world that could be for us in HR. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chris. Wonderful stuff. There are a few questions, but I want to say something that we realized as entrepreneurs and working with a bunch of entrepreneurs and other entrepreneurial types is that there's a very simple link here with the HR. Entrepreneurs make successful future for individuals as well as the organizations and whole nations, and it's all about people. Okay, we have questions here. Chris, there's a first question was about, we talk a lot about design thinking, agile mindset, and so what's the connection with all these design and agile and entrepreneurial HR?
I opened the Agile conference in London a few years ago, and I think what's happened is we've had a number of sort of little boxes about innovative thinking and agile and how we do stuff effectively. A number of little boxes developing in different places, in discrete places. So you've got agile, and you've got various models around, you know, Scrum and all sorts of things. One of the things that I think is interesting is, you know, and other people talk about effective, you know, being adaptable. In the end, it's just about, from my perspective, cutting out the labels and saying, what is this about? We know that this is what we need to achieve. We know that this is where we are now. This is where we want to get to. And if there's any problems along the way, we have an open and honest discussion about considering different options that we can utilize. And you know, you can say, oh, you bring in the old brainstorming techniques and all the rest of it. It's just about finding solutions. Just a very, very quick sort of link to Agile. When I spoke to the Agile conference, these are all highly specialist Agile people, primarily focusing on IT projects and those sort of projects, basically project management elements. And I sat down in the room and I said, so the way you do these discussions and talks and come out with solutions, do you think that this could be of any use for anybody else in the rest of the organization? And they said, no, this is how we do our stuff. And I'm saying, well, hang on, you're solving problems. You're finding a solution through the discussion, development, you know, however you want to describe it. Don't you think other parts of the organization have problems? And they said, well, I suppose so. So what was mind-blowing was that the Agile people focusing on their technical Agile work had never even considered that Agile could be used elsewhere in their organization. So I said, why don't you teach HR this process? From that meeting onwards, I spoke to Peter Cheese, the CEO of the CIPD, you know, the professional HR body. And I said, Peter, we have to get some basic, really basic Agile thinking and sort of processes into HR, so HR can then use a similar approach in terms of dealing with problems that HR has. Sorry, I rambled on, but that makes perfect sense, that too many people talking in their own boxes.
Yes, and they complicate things. I mean, from the entrepreneurial point of view, it's all about learning and solving the problems and trying something out that lots of things fail and then learning from them. We can't play too much with the labels. There's a wonderful question from Sarah, kind of a tough question about that. If your HR is nothing but entrepreneurial, I mean, if it's not really an entrepreneurial, where would you start? What are the first steps from coming from whatever administrative box to more entrepreneurial box?
I think there is that fundamental question about what is HR supposed to do. I mean, there is I can't remember what the name of the organization is. There is an organization providing sort of hospitality support services in the UK that doesn't have an HR function. You know, the CEO says you don't need HR because everybody can do everything. I just hope people are getting paid on time. So the comment is, well, that's one of the comments about entrepreneurial HR. I said, entrepreneurial HR is great, but please don't be entrepreneurial or strategic until you've made sure people are getting paid on time, because they're not going to be interested in being entrepreneurial if they're not getting paid on time. So, get the basics right first. But the point is that there needs to be a sort of a chink in the armor. There needs to be a little opportunity, a little door opening somewhere that you can see, this is where we can go through. Now, okay, in terms of smaller organizations, as they expand, we obviously have the fundamental challenge of we have one or two HR people trying to do all the admin work. Now, if you are completely and utterly snowed under in ensuring the basics are being delivered, because effectively you haven't got enough people, you are probably unlikely to be able to be entrepreneurial. But I think the word entrepreneurial might in some organizations start to frighten people. I will, I mean, when I, to the chief risk officer of UBS, said we wanted to develop entrepreneurial leadership, I had to pull him down off the ceiling because it was, the arrival of anarchy. So anyway, it's about maybe using other phraseology, maybe going in with just one of those elements of that script, which said, how would we like to get an extra half working day a week out of all of our leaders? And people look at you and say, you can't do that. And you say, actually, you can. And give them a little taster. For example, that is delivered by effective delegation training. So you give them a little taster that gets them hooked into HR can give me value. And then you don't call it entrepreneurial. You can call it whatever you like. So it is about understanding what's happening up here with the senior non-HR leaders and just saying, what are the problems you've got? Because when you understand what worries you, then if you can find a solution by calling it whatever the hell you like, then you can say, we've achieved this. Let me talk to you about, and it wouldn't be entrepreneurial HR because you wouldn't talk to them about entrepreneurial HR because that you keep inside. That's you sorting the HR house out. It's the entrepreneurial leadership is the sort of overdrive gear that you can sell to the organization.
And this is an important point, Chris, you're making, is that it's not about the labels. I mean, I'm very fond of saying that we work this entrepreneurial stuff, of course, for a living and with wonderful people. What we're saying is that we don't want to turn the large organizations into startups. That's complete nonsense. I mean, nobody, and for the audience, I mean, nobody in their right mind would you take your kids to a hospital run by a typical startup team, or would you like to live next to nuclear power station run by a typical startup team? Of course not. I mean, there are reasons for large organizations being large organizations and having good processes and all that. At the same time, there's something about entrepreneurship, about taking responsibility of successful future and making it happen, which I think all the leaders and all the organizations desperately need, especially in current situation, the situation that will ensue the next couple of decades, as far as we know. And it's all about people. Coming back to that.
Fundamentally, it's about the difference, I believe, and why it's so powerful in the corporate world is the entrepreneur is not thinking status quo, they're thinking opportunity, new world, what next? As we all know, within the corporate world, excuse me, other than in something like product development, maybe marketing, virtually everybody is thinking pretty much 90%, 100% status quo. One of the greatest achievements in UBS was the phrase, we need our employees to come up with good ideas and talk about how we can improve and find opportunities. But then you're in a culture where if an employee suggests an idea and it doesn't go well, they get blamed. And then there is also this concept, you say to a senior leader, do you welcome ideas from your employees about how opportunities and how you can, oh yes, of course we do. And then you ask the employees, do you give ideas? Oh no, they haven't said we can. So you have this lack of communication. And one of the things that made the amazing difference of UBS was senior leaders overtly, publicly saying, we want you to give us your ideas because we need your help to create one UBS. So please.
Absolutely. And absolutely, Chris. And this
but the interesting thing is there was an assumption it should happen in a corporate organization, but it wasn't.
Yes.
It had to be an overt statement. We need your help.
Yes. And we, of course, we've studied that. Elisa has in our team has actually studied this a little bit. Mm-hmm. And what is most important is that if you say all this and you make the open commitment that we want the ideas, then the one thing you have to follow is the feedback.
Yeah.
Whoever has the ideas, whether inside or outside of the organization, this was one of the Elisa's great discoveries. The biggest thing is the feedback. For innovator, the big thing is the feedback. If you come up with an idea, that's the most important thing. Okay, there was an excellent comment.
Just quickly, the research also says at the most basic level, employees would rather have feedback and know they are doing what could improve than not have feedback and not know how they're doing.
Yes. Yes, absolutely. There was a wonderful comment from Haney that, maybe we have to think about how do we goal this, because entrepreneurship has different connotations in different cultures. Like you said, the UPS risk officer wasn't too keen on the idea of entrepreneurship, considering that risky. Let's not get hung by the words.
Yes.
Thanks a lot for the discussion. Next, we are actually, for the audience, we have for you guys a possibility to discuss the further in small teams. Next in the program, we have a small fireside chat. In real life, we would have these two people on the stage discussing some of the stuff close to what we've been working on now. I'd like to introduce you to Pia Valve, who is the Vice President of HR and Communications at Viking Malt, and also representing our partner, Henry, the association, as a Vice Chair of Henry's board. Pia is a business-minded HR generalist, and she's been working in a number of international companies in HR development roles. Welcome, Pia.
Thank
you.
We
also have Krista Puustelli-Lahti. Krista is with Patria. She's the Vice President of HR for Patria Systems. Krista has passion for improving processes and work culture where everybody can flourish and do their best. Now, interesting detail here, Krista is currently on the EEX journey. So she is a participant in our program and as an advisor to Emmy Clothing Company, which is a circular economic company. And maybe we hear something about that as well. Welcome, Krista.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone.
To kick off this discussion, I'd like to ask you both about, maybe describe yourself a little bit as an HR professional. What is it in the HR that drives you? And maybe your quick key takeaway from Chris's presentation, if you please. Pia, would you like to start?
Sure. So, but before I start, I have to say thanks to my team, the small group that I was in, because we kind of went back here so quickly, I didn't even have the time to say thanks to them. So, so we had a nice discussion there. And now then to our panel discussion, a little bit about my background. I'm currently working, as you said, in Viking Malt. It's a family company, 250 million turnover, and we have 6 factories in 5 countries. And it's a global business in the sense that we have customers in all continents. kind of a market leader in the Northern Europe, I think it's fair to say, and 9th in the world and 6th in Europe. So that's the size of the company that I am in. And before that, I have worked in several different companies, mainly in big corporates, international ones, but also actually I was a consultant for a while in a company called HR4, which is was at the time, if not a startup, then kind of in the beginning of its existence. And there I had the opportunity to do a bit more kind of different angle type of work to HR work, because I was working as a in sales and also developing their service products. So that was that I found very fascinating to do. And I guess I have always been interested in HR from the business perspective. So always been interested in understanding also the context, the market and the customers and the numbers behind the business. So that's maybe one of the reasons why I am here today. Then talking about Chris, thank you for the very good and interesting introduction. I recognized many things there. I also not so long ago had this HR Agile training, so I'm kind of a certified practitioner, as they say now. But I think it requires a bit more practical exercise before I can call me that, but at least on paper. And I recognized kind of some things from there. What sticks to my mind was what I really picked up from your presentation was about the people development, and how kind of you were saying that also the HR needs to understand better, not only the HR function, but kind of the company holistic view and the market, so the customers, the industry, kind of the external environment. And that kind of resonates with some things that we've been talking about in our company, where in our current strategy has been a lot about kind of one Viking Malt and trying to get people to not work only in the country that they are in, for the factory they're in, but kind of understanding that, hey, we are actually a group and there is a dynamic here between the different entities. We have worked a lot around that and creating that culture. And now actually as the next step, we are in a bit of a mission to do that type of training where we try to get people to understand the business a bit more overall, which I could see that was very much kind of a leading thought in your presentation as well.
Yeah, from my perspective, again, this understanding business is critical because you're talking about a machine that has interconnecting cogs. If the interconnecting cogs don't interconnect well, it's not going to work well. And that interconnection is understanding and communication. And people go, oh, well, this communication stuff is really, really difficult. And I make two comments. One, there was a booklet published in 1974 in United Kingdom called Effective Team Briefing, where you give the big picture to your team, right? I'm working on the basis that if that was published in 1974, probably most corporate leaders should have got that knowledge by now somehow. And just secondly, the complexity. One of the things I say with my keynotes is, look, every single person in this audience in the next 6 months should, one, go and talk to another team somewhere in the organization that they work with, their team works with, about what do you do, why do you do it, who your end customers are, and then you get another leader to come in and talk to your team in a lunch and learn session.
Exactly. Yes. And I also liked actually what you had in that presentation where you had those examples of what to do. And I was thinking, yes, exactly, that's what we should do. But it is also a lot about that you kind of No, like you say that they should have noticed a long time ago. It's more about finding the time, and making that priority that, this is what we need to do. Yes, we have all this operational work at our hands, but if we want to move to the next level, we just simply have to prioritize and do it. It's
It's you just say everybody on the team needs to spend, I don't know, 1 hour a week doing some form of development along this path. Even if it's, investor relations are doing a presentation online or something, you just say, look, take 40 minutes and just look at that investor relations. Then you'll understand the market we're in. Then you'll understand what's going on.
Yes.
But it seems to me that so few people think of these ideas.
Yeah, that's very true. Tapio, you were trying to interrupt us.
I want to pull Krista into the discussion. Krista, what's your key takeaway from Chris's presentation?
Just a short note coming from Patria, and we are operating at the defense and security sector, and there my role is be like an HR business partner in a business unit called Systems. So yes, a lot of things what Chris said that I can really relate to. I think that this entrepreneurial HR is a great opportunity, but it requires HR to learn, and it's a big step, and we need to think that okay, in my world we have been doing very effective way the sort of the operative administrative HR tasks, but that's not enough. If we want to sort of take the sort of the make impact really at the business strategic level, we have to step out of the box and really understand the business logic, and also go outside the company, understand the markets and what kind of offering we should have when we go to markets and so on. People, it's always about the people, the success, and HR is really close to people, and therefore that's great opportunity for us. But it's a challenge, I would say.
Yeah, I think the challenge, because the industry you're in, defense, and so there's a lot of sort of governance, there's a military element, there's an engineering element, so it's essentially very structured,
yes,
very process oriented, and I think it's the challenge there is, if you're in the creative world, television or something, or media, if you don't have the right people, it's not going to work. Whereas the emphasis in your world is thinking on the process and the structure by which we deliver. But I think the opportunity there is to ensure that if you're going to take that step, it's talking about specific hard data that you can show management that says, if we do this with people, it's just the same as investing in a new machine. We will get a return on that investment.
Yes.
And the data shows that if we do this, there is a good potential that will be the return. They will listen to that. If you say we need to invest in our people, they go, oh, not again.
Well, it's I know some of Krista's colleagues actually, and of course the industry is it's all about systems, and it was silos, and there's a certain secrecy and everything.
Yeah.
At the same time, unfortunately, sorry Krista, unfortunately it's a growth industry currently. And we really need these capabilities. I don't know how many of you have thought about this, but we really have to take care of this security aspect of our lives. And so I would love to ask both Krista and Pia that in your daily work, how do you see this entrepreneurial approach? Is there enough of it? What's lacking, and what are the possible gaps? Krista, would you like to go first?
Yes, I have a strong background with processes, like Tapio said, processes and system implementation, and my sort of guiding principle is work smarter, not harder, and that's something that I also make questions to myself several times a day, that why I'm doing this and what kind of value this will bring to my business. Also, I see myself as a glue in a company. I'm the one who is gathering people together with different opinions around some certain topic or a problem that we need to solve. I am not the best technical. I don't have the technical understanding, and I'm not very deep understanding of finance either, but I can facilitate. I can make people together, and that's what I'm doing quite a lot, and that's a good thing.
Pia, can I ask you about malts? I mean, what's the main use of malts? We all know about beer, of course.
Yeah, that is the main thing actually, that our customers are all the big breweries in the world, basically buying some malt from us, it's fair to say, and but also the craft breweries, so the small ones. But we do also have the distilleries are our customers.
Ah,
whiskey.
yes.
Yes.
Interesting.
And
so very fundamental stuff.
yeah, this is very, very critical. And then we do something for the food business as well. We actually have now a very new innovation called Sprau, which is kind of analog to meat, which is now one of these really big trends. So we are. That's one thing that we have done now for the food industry. It's a smaller part of our business, but it could be a big one in the future.
Okay, now this is the perfect point to ask you, are you guys entrepreneurial enough?
You can always be better, but I think that there is a good entrepreneurial spirit in Viking Malt. It's certainly not a startup in any way. It's been there now. It's the 5th generation, so it's been around for a while. And malting is not exactly a process that has been changing in some fundamental. It's been more or less the same for the past 2,000 years. So there we don't have a lot of changes. But Viking Malt has always been. It's one of our key values is curiosity, and one of the kind of things that they've always done throughout the history is to trying to be a little bit ahead of the game. The vision is to discover the world of malt. So you want to kind of be the one who looks outside and sees what's going on and is a bit ahead of the curve. And as I mentioned, we did this Sprau new product, and it was an interesting from this entrepreneurial point of view where you want to be a bit agile and do something new. So this was it's a new product that is also has a patent, and then in the process we kind of realized that oops, there's left, right, and center coming others with the same type of ideas. That if we want to do this, we have to speed up, and we kind of speeded actually up the innovation circle quite significantly in order to be the first ones to go out with this new product, and we were kind of in the finalists of the best food product of the year, kind of this innovation prize, and we didn't win it, but we kind of consider us that having a medal is good enough, considering that looking at the other companies that we were competing with, I mean, size of their innovation teams were probably the size of our all employees in Finland. So yeah, so it's I think we were doing okay. And that's all about kind of networking,
Yeah, and this is a wonderful story. So making malts, which has been a few thousand years, and then there suddenly opens up the whole issue about we can't eat so much meat, and there's a huge opportunity. And how do you gear towards that? And it was interesting that you said that you've always wanted to be ahead of the curve a little bit.
Sorry, I was going to dive in. It's really interesting that sometimes you get organizations that recognize the strategic importance of being innovative in terms of product. Then either the product part of the organization is innovative, but then the rest of the organization isn't made more entrepreneurial because the chief executive said, oh, well, we're okay, we're developing more product. Yeah, the whole, that's not the whole delivery chain. That's not the whole system. And there is this sort of self-gratification. We've developed 3 new products, so we must be entrepreneurial, whilst the rest
Absolutely.
of the organization is still moving like a snail.
I think
Yes,
you're absolutely right, and yeah, definitely. And Tapio, you were earlier asking about the gaps, so I think that you know, we are definitely doing better in innovation in some other parts of the organization where we still have this work to be done.
Absolutely, and this is something I don't want to go into in a major way, because we have only so much time left. But it's true that there's around the innovation and even about the entrepreneurship, there's lots of window dressing and all kinds of, you know, we are working a little bit with the startup. What we are talking about is that I would love to see rank and file regular vice presidents and senior managers and directors and heads of new initiatives, all of them to be a little bit more entrepreneurial. And in that regard, I'd love to ask Krista, now you work with you actually been an advisor to 2 startups.
Yeah.
How different is that? What have you learned from that?
Yeah, my background is also, or mainly from big corporations, so it has been really out of the box thinking and stepping into the entrepreneur's shoes. It has changed my sort of and developed my understanding. It has made my perspective more wider, and because my daily routines are mainly with the sort of HR topics. So my first lesson and my one step towards more entrepreneurial has been really take part of this EEX program, and for sure my understanding that how business is really starting everything from the customer, and how different functions are built around the value proposition and customer promise. All that thinking is I have had a bit flavors from different part of the organization, from risk management, from finance and etc. So it has been really eye-opening experience from me, and but also the funny thing has been that I have noticed that the key issues and key problems, no matter you are in small entrepreneur or person from a large corporation, the topics are really common, and the sort of the basic questions and problems we have quite same sort of worries.
Yes.
and it has been a bit surprised, because I thought that, okay, do we have anything common to talk even? So it has been a learning experience from that point of view, and really ability to learn from people's experiences and their views and opinions. That has been fantastic.
Wonderful, thanks a lot. And this is also about what Pia mentioned, curiosity, and how do we cultivate the curiosity. There are a couple of questions from the audience which I would like to entertain. Could you, all of you, just a couple of sentences, could you share practical examples how entrepreneurial mindset benefits HR and creating value for the organization? I mean, we've talked about this a lot, but what are the 1 or 2 top benefits for HR?
Who should start?
You can go, Pia.
All right. Well, the first thing that comes to my mind is that that is really kind of helping HR to focus on the right things. That if we are truly kind of entrepreneurial in our mindset, then we are thinking about that. What does the kind of the customer need? You know, where is the money coming from? We understand the business logic there, and that should kind of drive our efforts to the things that really matter.
Yeah,
that's probably my my idea about it. To put it
Krista,
shortly.
what do you think?
Yeah, totally agree, and I see that HR needs to breathe the air of business really, and HR role is really to interpret the business needs and produce sort of competence development plans, etc. So So I think that HR needs to look in the future, and if we don't have the understanding that where this business is going, what is the whole ecosystem around us, then we might do wrong decisions and focus on the wrong things, like Pia said.
Yes.
I would just say that the fundamental thing is about, if HR can understand the customer, dare I say it, even by going to meet customers, which is a frightening concept, that HR meets real customers, then because you have a picture of a person in your mind, then it's not just we just do this. But there is one really, really interesting point that is worth mentioning that we discovered, that in terms of HR delivery and in terms of strategic effectiveness, when I was at HSBC, and I didn't even think about this stuff at HSBC, where investment bank, when I was sort of head of leadership development there, but what I noticed was, I said to my team, what are your operational compatriots asking you to do in terms of HR service for their teams? Because I wanted to know how my new team was spending their time. And I had spoken to the HR director, and I'd spoken to the chief executive about what are the organizational priorities. And what became absolutely apparent was that, one, the ability of the line to cascade line of sight on operational activity to align to strategic objectives was fundamentally flawed, i.e. at operational level, there were people in the line who were doing things that were not contributing to strategic objectives. And what was interesting was that the discussion with my HR business partner compatriots, who told me what the operational part was doing, allowed us to feed back up through the HR line to the chief executive that actually there were elements of the organization that had not been aligned to strategic objectives in terms of their operational activity, so they could then realign. So in that sense, HR delivered immediate value because they picked up a failure of alignment on the line system.
Yes, this is wonderful.
My HR team, these are the strategic objectives. If you are asked to spend time, these are the things you must do. Other stuff, you come back to me and ask if you can spend your time on, because they are not aligned to strategic objectives.
Wonderful. We're running out of time soon, and there's a question because Julia asked it. One quick tip, and I want to keep it very snap and quick. For somebody who wants to make a career in HR, how would you advise? Krista, one thing you want to go into HR.
Go to the business people and people from different functions and ask what you are doing and why.
Brilliant. Pia.
Look outside your own company, get to know the industry and the business. It will help you forward in your career.
Yes. Chris, one advice to an aspiring student.
If you're going to go into HR, focus on what HR is supposed to achieve for organizations, not just what HR does. And also study some basic neuroscience in terms of how people react to different responses and why people do what they do, because that will give you, one, a powerful understanding of how people react to you, both at work and at home, and two, it will give you tools to enable you to position your HR offering in a way that produces the right mental response from your business partners, from the business, not the wrong one.
Absolutely. We are running out of time soon. So couple of points here. First of all, I want to thank all of our presenters. Wonderful to have you, Chris. You're giving definitely a different view into all this. Thanks a lot, Pia, Krista, sharing your insights. thanks to all of our audience. I hope you had wonderful discussions in your small teams. I do hope you learned something today. A big thanks to Henry of co-hosting this with us. I mean, we're always happy to work with you. Big thanks to my team, which you haven't really seen, but have been frantically working behind the electronic scene, so to speak, to make this all technology to function, which is wonderful how we can work across the world in some cases. Thanks a lot. Now, for those of you, before we go, for those of you who think they might want to become more entrepreneurial, think about the first steps. We have an information session about the EEX journey coming up on the May 18th. And I'm sure Krista can answer some of your questions if you're interested in the job. For some of you, you may want to consider sending your boss to our program. I mean, this is a common thread of discussion in making everybody's life easier is to have more entrepreneurial bosses, maybe. But, you know, personally, I want to close this by pointing out it's all about people. It's the entrepreneurial people who will make the successful future for all of us, change the world for better. So let's make world a little bit more entrepreneurial. Thanks a lot, guys. See you next time.
Thank you for inviting.
Bye.
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 Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you all.
Thanks,
Have a
guys.
great day.